Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Donovan Mitchell, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. Coming at you. We're recording this on the second of two consecutive off days. Nice to get a little breather, even after a couple of losses. And very excited to record this episode because we are recording with one of the newer members of the KFS family. If you have been checking out the old podcast feed or checking out our activity, our goings on Twitter, you will know that we've been doing a little thing called KFS Study Hall, in which we talk about this team with the Twitter fan base. Twitter fans, right? Are there any other fans? Those are the only fans that exist, Twitter fans of this team. We've been doing it some different times, but now we're doing it, I think, on Saturday mornings. It's been going very well, and that is because of one of the hosts of KFS Study Hall. Should I say Shawn with a W or I don't know how to introduce you. How do you want to be introduced?
You can call me whatever you want. My mama name is Shawn Hardie. You can call me Shawn Hardie.
I'm 39 years old and I still don't have the answer to the question when people are like, what do you prefer? Because I'm like, my answer is the same as yours. Call me whatever you want. You call me John, call me Jonathan, call me Macri.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I still have students, or I had students that called me Mr. Mac and Cheese, which was less than pleasant. Yeah. Oh, that was a thing that happened for a few years.
Shocker.
So I just want to encourage everybody that's listening on the podcast to watch on YouTube, because what I just did in post is change John's name to Mr. Mac and Cheese for the rest of this YouTube video.
I was about to say for the rest of the live.
Maybe that may be what your YouTube name is going forward, John.
Mr. Mac and Cheese. I didn't mind it. Shawn, hello, sir. How are you?
I am doing well. Glad to be here. It's amazing. If you had told me years ago that one day I was scrolling on Twitter and Twitter.com suggested I follow some guy named JC Macri NBA, and the picture that he had looked so professional. I actually thought you were like some guy from some fledgling sports network.
Like a real person.
You were just a guy in your living room.
Guy.
Live tweeting games, and then hopping on Periscope after the games. And I would
miss Periscope.
I would actually make it, and this is the kissing ass portion of the show. And I would make it a point to make sure, like, not only watch your Periscopes, but if I miss them, watch them the next day, because you can go back and watch them. And there were times if I missed 3 or 4, I would watch 3 or 4 of them, because I found your insights level-headed and entertaining, which is what I aim for. So if you had told me that I'd be on this show, that there'd be a podcast and I'd be here,
yeah, right,
I would not have believed you. So I am honored to be here, and thank you for having me.
Shawn, if you had told me that just laughing right, because I know as we're going with this, that there was going to be a show, like someone could refer to, like, you know, this show, I would have, yeah. Those were the days of Periscope, man. Actually, before Periscope, it was the first couple I ever uploaded. It was after the All-Star break in the season that KP got injured. When did he get injured?
2017,
17, 18?
Yeah, 17,
okay.
18.
So, like, starting after the All-Star break that season, I decided just during the All-Star break, I'm like, I'm going to start making little videos to recap each game. And the first ones I recorded on, and then would like upload on, or like whatever, record and then like tweet out. But the video, you can only tweet out, what was it? It's like 2 minutes, 20 seconds. Yeah. And like the first time I tried to do one, I had to do like 3 takes because I had to get it compact. And it's, as you probably know well by now, I'm not very good at containing my thoughts in a short period of time. So that was a challenge. Yeah. So this is exciting because we've recently expanded the KFS team, and you're a huge part of that. So I figure, be a good opportunity for people to get to know you a little bit, and then we'll get into some Knicks stuff, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. Let's start here. How long have you been a Knicks fan for? Give me a little bit of your backstory.
I have been
You're like my age, right? You're a little older than me.
Yeah, yes, I am 41. Actually, I'm 41 and a half. I have been a Knicks fan since 1992. Okay. And I became a Knicks fan because I became a Knicks fan during the Bulls-Knicks playoff series in 92. And back then, riding the school bus to school to IS 181 in the Bronx, shout out, the bus was split of Knicks fans and Bulls fans. And by Bulls fans, I mean Michael Jordan fans. Yeah. So we're in junior high school. So I'm 11. And every day on the bus, it would just be back and forth. Like we get to a stop and a Bulls fan would come on, like, see what happened last night. The next stop, Knicks fan get up. And I didn't have a team. But at the time I said, I don't understand. We live in New York. Why is anybody rooting for the Bulls?
It's a great question.
And the rest is history. I'm like, I'm a Knicks fan. Now, it's ironic because my favorite football team is the Baltimore Ravens. So I didn't really practice what I preach down the line. And yes, I know that because I know I'm talking to a Steelers fan. So
I can't even, let me stop right there. I can't even call myself a Steelers fan anymore. Like, they'll be on national TV. They'll be playing like a Monday night game and I won't even turn it on. At this point, I'd rather watch a magic Jazz preseason game than watch a big, quote unquote, big Steelers game. That's how out I am on, but that's more how out I am on the NFL. I don't, it's not.
Well, but
I still hate the Ravens though.
Yes. And the automatic look of disgust on your face for those who are listening. When I said Baltimore Ravens, it's still in there somewhere.
It's in there.
Yes. So I say respectfully, fuck you. And enjoy the rest of Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett this season.
I know who I know who those people are. I know one is a quarterback who definitely stinks, and another is a quarterback who probably stinks, but at least we should, play him to be sure whether he stinks or doesn't stink. See, I know that much.
So that's my Knicks origin story. It's pretty simple, and I've been with the Knicks. I've been riding with the Knicks ever since, throughout the entire 90s and the depths of hell that have gone on since then. And I'm still here. And I'm now raising my son, who is 6-year-old, to be a Knicks fan in the hope that they will turn it around so he can have joy that I felt in the 90s, but hopefully it does not end after 2029.
I mean, I feel comfortable. This is a safe space, right? I feel comfortable calling this a 2-decade run of futility. All due respect to Andrew Claudio's beloved 2000.
You mean the year that they were the 2 seed and won 54 games, John? That's futile. You're right.
Yes.
And they weren't a real contender then. And the
weren't a real contender going 5-2 against the 2 teams that made the finals.
And they walked into game 1 at the Garden against Indiana. And they took a big, stinky poo.
J.R. Smith was bad, and Tyson Chandler forgot how to guard Roy Hibbert for some reason. Listen, I'm not saying that season didn't. It wasn't. The guy was fine. He did exactly what he was during the season. I'm sorry that the guy couldn't bring a team that was not that good to the finals.
Look, I'm okay.
Which backs up your point that they weren't that good.
We're getting off topic. It's been a 20-year run of futility. How many organizations really have had runs of futility that are that much longer than that? I mean, so I feel like your son is in for some good stuff ahead. The odds have to balance out, right?
Yes. At some point, the law of averages says
the law of averages. Thank you.
You should not be complete ass anymore. But you know what? If 3 years ago, I told you the Knicks would win 41 out of 72, which translates to 47 wins, and then 37, you'd say okay, we're going in the right direction. So now, when people try to act like, it's, we're the worst team in the world for being 37-45, I say, do you remember where we were 2 years ago when we were yelling? I remember there were Knicks fans who were hoping for a playoff push under the Mike Miller-led Knicks with Elfrid Payton at point guard and Julius Randle. And I remember we went into a game in Atlanta, which we lost in double OT, and guys like, yo, if we get this game, we're like...
That was when they had won... Had they won four?
They won like four in a row. Yeah, they won four in a row.
Yeah.
And it was like, if they win this game, then they're like 3 games out of the 8th seed.
That's exactly what it was.
They lost in double OT. And like, so... Look where we are. But, for some people, it's not good enough, but I digress.
Well, no, but it's funny you say that because, like, as you know, I write the newsletter and I don't. And one of the things we're going to talk about is Twitter and where the Twitter thoughts are nowadays. I don't go on Twitter that much. I get a lot of my fan interaction from people who comment on the newsletter. And I go back and forth with them. And my sense is, and I do scroll Twitter too, a little bit, not so much interaction, but my sense is that coming off of the losses to the Bucks and the Cavs, the mood is very dour. It is not a happy group right now. And I was thinking about this because, like, if you look at the league right now, if you boil it down to teams that were supposed to be good, and there's a possibility that they are actually good, as opposed to like maybe Utah, who, like, all due respect to Utah, they're probably not going to win 50 games. So teams that like had a nice ceiling this year and that have actually executed on that and have looked crisp and like solid, play good two-way basketball, like whenever they go out on the court. I think you'd say that Milwaukee and Cleveland are 2 of like 3, 4, maybe 5 teams if you want to push it. I mean, the Suns, you want to throw the Celtics in there, although they've had some shaky moments. I don't even want to like Pelicans, maybe, like, and even the Grizzlies like have had their moments, but like they're usually pretty solid. And like they lost one game, the Ja was not there. So my point is, I'm not sure if we should be looking at these 2 games and, the sky is falling because of these 2 losses.
No, you're right. Like I've said it on Twitter. I've said it to friends. I've said it everywhere. After 6 games, we have won the games we're quote unquote supposed to, and we have lost the games we're quote unquote supposed to. So I think someone said, was it Benji? It might have been Benji. When he said, like, if you're mad at the Knicks record during these games, you should be mad at your expectations. Yes. Because why did you think we were going into Milwaukee and, like, yes, we could have won. And yes, the way that we lost stunk, like an 18-0 run in the third or against Cleveland. You know what it is? It's that you get into the game and the hope brings you in. I will, if we have time at the end, I will tell you a story about the sporting event that changed the way I watch sports. And it was basically how...
Tell it now. I want to hear it. You can't tease like that. Tell it now.
Okay. So as I reminded you, I'm a Ravens fan.
I really don't like that you keep reminding me of it, but continue.
Did I say that out loud? Okay. So me being a fan of Baltimore Ravens, I was watching. So the 2012 AFC Championship game. No, I take a step back. The 2011 AFC Championship game. Ravens at Patriots. And I went into that game thinking, all right, this is now I'm confident because we always play New England tough, but hey, this is tough to win the AFC title, to win the AFC championship in New England in January is going to be tough. So it's fine. If we lose, it's okay. It's a great season. And there was a play where Joe Flacco threw a pick and I was like, whatever. And then the very next play, Brady takes a shot and like takes a shot downfield. Mm-hmm. And Jimmy Smith does this one-handed tip. He tips it and he tips it to somebody or someone tipped it to. I think it was like Pollard tips to him, whatever. And they got this amazing pick. And after that, I was all in. I was invested. Like we're gonna win. Like I was like all that level setting shit went out the window.
You let yourself believe.
And then as we drove for what should have been the game winning drive. Joe Flacco throws a pass to Lee Evans, and I see the ball disappear in Lee Evans' arms. And for 1/2 second, I think we're in the Super Bowl, and Sterling Moore knocks it out. All right, that was second down. Then it's third down, incomplete. Okay, at least we're going to overtime, except wait a minute, Billy Cundiff just kicked a 32-yard field goal wide. And I was completely broken. I was completely broken. So bad. Like, my friend is a Giants fan. I called him. I was living in Harlem at the time, and I said, "Can you meet me at Harlem Tavern? Because I am distraught and I need to go somewhere and I need to get out of this house." And I took it a better. I didn't know. I was just like, I need to walk. So he lived like 20 blocks up the street. I lived like 3, and I met him there, and I was just distraught. Because I was like, "Yo, how could we lose this game?"
I like this part of the story, by the way. I'm enjoying all of this.
And he said to me, "Shawn, my cousin always told me, if you get too high or too low when it comes to sports, you ain't been in the game long enough." And he said that to me, and I said, he's exactly right. And I am, at the time, it was January 2012, so I was about to turn 31, and I was like, I'm a 31-year-old man. I'm distraught about a football game.
Yeah.
And so I looked at sports differently ever since then. Now, we won a Super Bowl next year, and I was ecstatic. But so now it's like I have properly calibrated my expectations when it comes to a sporting event. So there are times. Now, listen, I will say this: the whole calibrate. Listen, if the Knicks are in the God help, if the Knicks ever make like a finals run or a championship, all that's going out the window. Like, they can have that,
but
that's different. Out the window for that.
That's different, and I'll give you a theory that I have that I am workshopping, which is that most NBA teams, for significant portions of an average game, will look quite good, and even good enough that you're like, oh, they could win this game. And then, of course, they're playing another team that also has those same qualities, and one team will win and one team will lose. I think for so many years we became so used to not having that feeling because we were one of the very, the however many teams, 4, 5, 6 teams that just on a lot of nights we wouldn't look like a team that could win on any given night because it was just so dysfunctional, and it was just like, those teams where you watch and you're like, oh yeah, this team, they might trip into a win every now and then, but it's not. And then now the last year, especially, they had these large portions of games where it's like, oh, like, and then you'd think like, okay, they could win this game. That's just normal. That's just being a normal basketball team. You're playing another team that's also pretty good. And then when you don't have, top end talent. And then last season, there was also just, there was some bad juju on that team as well. You lose. It is what it is.
You're right. I just think that like, I can be just like, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that we lost the Cavs game. I was disappointed that we lost the
Grizzlies game. Yeah. The Bucks game, I can't say I was like,
I'm disappointed just because of like, it was like, all right, I was just disappointed because they lost. Cause like, I want us to win.
Yes.
But I calibrate my expectations so that, all right, I'm disappointed for a few minutes. And then I take a deep breath and I'm like, all right, well, we weren't supposed to win the game anyway. Especially like, I knew that Donovan Mitchell was going to do what he did because,
did you want to trade for Mitchell?
Yes, but not at the price. And so I have been arguing with people on Twitter about this, and
God bless you.
The pushback. No, so it's the pushback of people who believe that Leon Rose totally fucked this up is like maddening, because are there things he could have done differently? Yes. However, I always go back to this because I heard you discuss this on, I forget which show it was. It was a recent. No, it was a post game, and someone was like, "How Angels never trading him to us," and you pushed back.
I
I believe that Danny Ainge wanted to make the best possible deal. I do also know that Danny Ainge is a human being. And the question I have, and I say that because human beings listen, hear things, and may consciously or subconsciously be affected by them. I think Danny Ainge was like, oh, these motherfuckers showed up to a playoff game to watch our player. I'm not trading them. No.
Okay.
Do I believe that he felt as if, do I feel that he felt he was going to stick it to the Knicks one way or another because he knew he was dealing with a quote franchise that's quote unquote desperate for a star? Yeah. Shout out to Stephen A. And do I think he felt good? Not good. Do I think he felt some joy afterwards in the fact that he traded Donovan Mitchell and got the picks, and he did not acquiesce to the demands that the star never really made because he was too afraid to get flamed at his mentions by people in Utah? So the thing I always say, and you can push back on this, is, and this has been reported by Woj, and I know the Twitterari and people will pick and choose when they want to believe and not believe a report based on the narrative, but why didn't someone who said, I want the best deal, why didn't they go back to the Knicks after Cleveland made their offer?
Okay, well, give me your answer. Okay.
You have two answers. And because Cleveland, and I'm taking this from Zach Lowe, so I will drink two.
There we go.
Cleveland literally offered everything they could. He said this, like, we literally have no more to trade. All we can trade are these 3 firsts and these 2 swaps by rule.
That. Yeah.
The Knicks have 11 first-round picks over the next 7 years. So they have more to trade. If you want the best deal, and if we are going to follow the story that Knicks first-round picks, unprotected Knicks first-round picks are the gold standard of currency in the league, why wouldn't you not at least pick up the phone and say, Leon, I got this from Cleveland. I'm going to take this. Can you beat it? And if he says no, fine. And if Danny called, and obviously Danny's not really calling Leon, but if the Jazz call the Knicks and the Knicks say we're not going to beat it, then you can crush them and be like, you had the ball on the tee, you had it on the tee, and you went full Beltron, struck out looking. Shout out to Andrew Claudio, but he didn't, and I'm just like, but you wanted the best. You wanted the best deal, the team with the most capital that was involved. You did not go back to. So I would love to hear your pushback, and you probably since you are go ahead.
No, I have a couple things. One, I think Danny went into the process feeling like, as long as he negotiated soundly, which I think he felt him and or his front office was going to be able to do, he was in something of a no-lose situation, in that he would drive New York to the point where they were most comfortable going, which I think he knew and was confident the whole time was going to be a pretty goodly package. And it was, based on what was reported, right? And that he would either get to a position where he could either take that package or hold that package, right? And then, and basically just, if he didn't feel like it was enough or all that he could get, put it in his back pocket and seek other offers, which is essentially what ended up happening. Yeah. That's number one. And on the RJ extension point, it was reported at the time that just because the extension happened, it did not, like, it ended up being a kibosh on the deal, but it was not, that was not immediately the case. They could have, and I went through it at the time, and we're not going to go rehash it, but there was a possibility they still could have made that deal in any case.
Agreed. Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, I think because the Knicks were haggling so much over the points that they were haggling over, right? So it was Grimes, or if it's not going to be Grimes, and it's going to be, another young player. Quickly, we've heard, plus, another pick, and then there would be protections. The Knicks were always trying to keep those distant picks off the table.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland's package was so, and I think you're seeing this now in how Utah is like using Lauri Markkanen, and I think between the players and the distance of the picks, I think Ainge felt it was to a certain extent useless to go back and really negotiate with the Knicks because of how much better he felt that the Cleveland package was than any of the Knicks had offered at that time. That's number two. Number three, I have to think from Cleveland's perspective, there's at least, and this, again, I know this was not reported, but you would think just like the way these things go, this was not like Kobe Altman being like, okay, here's what we're offering. Take all the time that you need. Don't worry about it. We'll be here waiting. There had to be some sense of urgency. That's number three. And this is the big one is number four. Look, I'm not, I can't believe I have to say this out loud. I'm not Ian Begley. I'm not someone who knows any of the things that all the people know. But I do remember that day, the day the trade went down, and it went down at about 3:00, right?
Yes.
Okay. I was getting like text, DMs, whatever, from just different people who had been giving me little snippets along the way. It doesn't even matter what they were, but that there were things floating around in the air, right? After several days of nothing, right? The two sides walked away from the table. They were not negotiating after the RJ extension. There was like, is Utah now demanding 4 first-round picks? Are the Knicks thinking of offering 4 first-round picks? There was like stuff floating around. I am of the belief that the Knicks had some inkling that there was something happening out there. And and correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, you remember it as well. I don't think the reporting was that like the Knicks had like absolutely, like, I think they were shocked that a deal got made, but I don't know that it was ever reported that the Knicks had absolutely no inkling that like there was something else potentially going on. I think the Knicks did have an inkling, and I bet you if they would have gotten on the phone with Utah and said, here, 4 firsts, RJ and Grimes, I think they would have potentially gotten Donovan Mitchell. Now, if they had made that trade, we'd all be sitting here and be like, oh my God, what did they do? That would be my response. I don't know that for certain, that last part, but that is my working assumption. Does any of this matter? I don't know. I do think, however, that if Leon Rose sitting here today knew, like, if he could go back in time and like him knowing how it was going to play out, I bet you he would have done. He would have never given them a chance to go to Cleveland.
Can I jump in, John?
Yes.
So 2 things. One, can I do my best John Macri impersonation for a second? Because I might actually have some intel on this. I had like a person reach out to me. I've been sitting on this, but like I told friends about this because Donovan Mitchell went on with JJ Redick, and he said this the day after the press conference and the day of his press conference when he was introduced with the Cavs, and was like, I really thought I was going to be a Knick. Like, I was told I would be a Knick by the end of the weekend. And as we know, that weekend we heard talks were heating up. That Sunday night, they all went to bed thinking a deal would get done on Monday. On Monday, something changed and the Knicks extended RJ. And then 3 days later, Donovan Mitchell's in Cleveland. The league office also thought this was done. He was headed to New York, and they were preparing media for it. Like, the league was getting ready to fully market, like, Donovan Mitchell is going to New York City, and Leon pulled the plug because of protections, which makes sense with every single thing we've heard that he didn't want to. And this is why I keep going back to Dexter Henry and what he said, like, they'd be in no man's land with Donovan Mitchell, but they'd have nothing to move forward with. I don't know what this team would look like. Now you're closer because you got the first guy in the building, and who knows what Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson are together. But as far as like do-overs are concerned, I also think Leon, seeing what this team was, would have also, I don't think he took the Cleveland offer seriously. I think he always thought he had the best.
You mean the Cleveland possibility? The possibility.
Right. I think he thought, like, I have all the, like Shawn said, 7 first-round picks, although I think the Knicks also overvalued the 4 protecteds like they were a thing, and the swaps like they were a thing. That it was, I think I could get away with this with RJ and 2, and then a bunch of protecteds. And the Jazz clearly didn't think as highly of RJ and wanted 3 unprotecteds in the future and when they went to Cleveland and the negotiations were more seamless than 2 months of talking to the Knicks, it was like, all right, I don't want to go back to this. Having said that, to go back to the original question that you asked Shawn, I also would have loved Donovan Mitchell on this team. I also know that this team's ceiling isn't that high with Donovan Mitchell. It would have been more fun to watch. Yeah. I don't know where the improvement comes from after this.
There are people on Rihanna's internet who believe.
Wait.
Yes, the internet belongs to Rihanna. You did not know?
I did not know. Okay. Is that a Two Americas thing? Hold on. Is that a Two Americas thing where John and I wouldn't get it? Okay.
It's fantastic.
There are people on Rihanna's internet who believe that the Knicks could have made that deal. There are people who believe that the Knicks could have made, because I believe that Chris Broussard had reported back in July that the original asking price was 6 firsts, which would have been like 3 unprotected and like 3 of the protected joints, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it would have been like 6 firsts, Obi, Mitch, and probably like 40, whatever, right? And there are people who believe that Knicks could have made that deal and then still had enough assets to build a championship team around Donovan Mitchell, or that Donovan Mitchell is at the level where if I get him in the building, I can figure out everything else. And I don't believe none of those things to be true. Neither of those to be true.
I don't either, to be clear. I don't either, to be clear.
Yes. So that's but the problem is the people that believe that, and I can't believe we were rehashing the Donovan Mitchell trade again. But the people who believe that, those are the people that say that Leon fucked up. And that's why I push back on them. I say, the problem is I don't know if Leon ever had a chance. Like, they never called Leon back. And to your point, John, I agree with you. They had he's Leon Rose. He's Varys from Game of Thrones. He has ears everywhere. So he had to know something was wrong.
You hope,
right? Well, if he didn't, then Jesus Christ. But Danny, just say hey, this is listen. Cleveland gave me an offer. They said I have 1 hour. What you got for me? And if he tells you, and Leon tells him to fuck off, they tells him to fuck off. Okay. But give him the chance to tell you to fuck off.
Can I have a question? Can I ask a question? What's to say he didn't? And we just have heard, we've just gotten PR from everywhere that the Knicks, because we did hear what the Knicks' final offers were. And maybe Danny Ainge was like, this is the offer I've got from Cleveland. And then Leon Rose decided, I'm going to start writing this RJ Puff piece about how we love him and never tried to trade him.
Shawn, I'm not disputing you, but I will say it is in the Knicks' best interest. Knowing how the Knicks operate, I think it is undisputable that it is in the Knicks' best interest for the word to be out there that the Knicks never got a chance to match the offer. And quite frankly, I think it's certainly, I think it's in Cleveland's best interest because it makes them look like they were like, okay, you do this deal, take the deal or leave, and which you want if you're the Cavs. And if you're are any Jazz fans mad at that? At the deal that they got? No. So I don't think it's against Utah's best interest to make it seem like they made, they got the offer and never went back to the Knicks. Did they screw up? This is the position they're in. They did the best that they could and they wanted a guy and they didn't get a guy, and whether they would have done more if they'd given the chance, it's almost neither here nor there. What I do think is interesting now, though, is whereas with the Don, and this is what I want to pick your brain about. Whereas I think the Donovan Mitchell conversation during the summer was more focused on we'd have to give up so much, and why are we negotiating against ourselves? And that's stupid. That's LOL Knicks type of stuff from the past, and we don't want to go down that road. Now it's more like that. We're people a lot of fans out there, I think, are watching the games, and it's like, okay, we're a mediocre basketball team, and they had a chance to not be a mediocre basketball team anymore. And they did not do the thing that would have made them, probably, not mediocre anymore. And I think people are coming and now to a reckoning about that fact. And I don't know how well that's going over. And I think that is why there's a little bit of a sour feeling, even though, as we all agree, hey, they're 3-3. They've looked pretty good. They're sound, competent, the whole thing, right? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think you're right. I think there are people who say, well, look what Donovan Mitchell did. Look what Donovan Mitchell did. As I tell my son, do not come downstairs while I record.
Listen, man, we have to talk to our kids live on the pod sometimes. It happens. My daughter comes on once a post game. It's inevitable.
There are people who believe that, like, Donovan Mitchell, simply by adding him, our floor would have been what the Jazz were for the majority of his career, including, like, being the 1 seed in the 2021 and yada. And I have to remind those people that those teams had Rudy Gobert, and we do not have Rudy Gobert. And of course, these people say we have Mitchell Robinson, and I say Mitchell Robinson is not Rudy Gobert. And he cannot set a screen in year 5, but that's either here nor there.
Well, no, it is here and there, because it's part of the answer to this question, which is, what is this team and what is this team not? Yeah.
So I feel like there are people that believe that you talk to these people who are like, the sky is falling. And I literally had a rant yesterday on KCDA where I said, I'm sick and tired of listening to people cry and bitch and moan about players on other teams. Like, let it go. There's this feeling that's like, we should have made a trade because who are we going to get? And I tell them, have you been paying attention to the NBA the last decade? Every 12 to 18 months, somebody says, you know what? I want out. And they're like, well, who's going to be this time? I was like, I don't know. But then again, 3 years ago, did we see James Harden saying, I want out? Did we see Donovan Mitchell? So I can see why Leon will not have made a deal, because he's probably thinking, all right, there's rumblings going on. There's going to be a guy, because that's just the nature of the bit. That's just how the league has operated.
I went through it over the summer. I wrote a whole newsletter and did I forget where I set the bar. But I set the bar, I think, maybe at like 3 all-star teams by the age of 25. And like, this is a thing, I forget what the exact numbers were, but this was an incredibly rare thing for the very large history of the league. And then starting with the Melo trade, it has set off, not a chain of events, because that, well, maybe you could look at it that way, I suppose. But it's like, it is once every year to year and a half. If you bend the qualifications a little bit, like Deron Williams didn't like meet whatever bar that I set, but I remember when Deron Williams was traded. I remember how the esteem that Deron Williams was held in amongst the league. There was a Deron Williams, Chris Paul conversation for a little while there that we forget about now. But like, I agree with you. Someone else is going to be on the moves, and it's hard to see in the moment. That's all.
And I will give the whiners and the complainers, I will throw them a bone here when I say, because like I said earlier, I'm 41 years old. When I'm talking to people, a lot of them are younger than us. So if you started watching this, but if you started watching this team in, I don't know, 2002, you have seen squadouche for the most part. I'm gonna co-opt that word at some point very soon. Well, I co-opted it from Tony Reale, so you can have it.
I'll borrow it.
But there's the Stephon Marbury, we got swept by the Nets team in 2004. There's the Melo playoff teams. There's the 54 win season, and there's this we here season. Yeah. That's it. That's the list. So I can understand the frustration of like I say it all the time. The Golden State Warriors were the New York Knicks. They were. In fact, they were awful. We all remember. Yeah, Chris Mullin night. Yeah, booing Joe like, and what happened? David Kahn decided to take 2 point guards not named Steph Curry, and the rest is history. And I actually have this discussion with people all the time. The amount of luck the Knicks have not had is in the last 20 years is unbelievable. unbelievable.
Well, them and the Mavs are the only teams that have never moved up in the lottery and throughout the entire since Ewing.
Yeah, between that, Curry getting taken a pick before us, getting the third pick. Porzingis injury, getting the third pick in a quote unquote 2-player draft, getting the second pick and getting the second, like having the second worst record and getting the fourth pick, having the worst record and getting the third pick. Meanwhile, I watched the Los Angeles Lakers for 3 straight years get the third pick in the draft. I think 2 of those years, it was like, they will move down unless they get number 2, and they get number 2.
And they were trying to win. They went into all those years.
They were trying to win. Cleveland, who goes out of their way to be ass and was literally chasing the AFC, has won the lottery 4 fucking times, like including oh my goodness. If you think about, I said this on Spaces. I said, think about all the luck Cleveland has had. Like, first of all, arguably the greatest player of all time is born 45 minutes down the road, and they win that draft lottery.
That matters.
Right? That matters, right? He leaves because Cleveland's a dumpster fire. They win the Kyrie Irving lottery, they win the Andrew Wiggins lottery, and they win their. Don't forget about the Anthony Bennett number 1. And I'm pretty sure it's the Kyrie lottery. The Kyrie lottery they won because they with the trade with the Clippers.
Baron Davis salary dump.
And the Clippers said, here's our pick unprotected, and it wins. And why is that? And they get Kyrie Irving. And then what happens? Because Kyrie Irving's there, LeBron says, you know what? I like to go back to Cleveland. And because them two are there, I'd like to get Kevin Love. And you know what I can trade? This other number 1 pick that I want again. And they take that and they go and they get Kevin Love and they win the championship. That runs its course. Then Kyrie says, you know what? I don't want to be here anymore. Let me go. So they trade him to Boston for the number 4 pick, which turns into Colin Sexton. And then they're ass anyway. But then they get Darius Garland, and now they're okay. And because they have Colin Sexton, guess who's in the Donovan Mitchell deal? Colin Sexton. It's just like this continuous line of just fucking falling ass backwards in this shit. Meanwhile, we can't get a freaking break.
So I agree with the sentiment of that. I really do. My worry is that the Knicks moment to take advantage of another team's misfortune or stupidity or whatever word you want to use, that we have had our moments and failed to take advantage. Shout out to our good buddy Yash, who likes to bring this up probably on a bi-weekly basis at this point, about how Phil almost traded Kristaps for, whether you want to talk about the package that may have brought them, Devin Booker, or to the Celtics, a package that would have brought them like the Tatum pick and like Jaylen Brown or whatever, like that was there potentially, maybe. Obviously that trade didn't happen, and then you could look at, again, not to bring up Donovan Mitchell again, but like there were people in the building who wanted them to draft Donovan Mitchell, and Phil, and shout out Clarence Gaines. We love Clarence. I love Clarence Gaines. Twitter friend of mine. I think he was partially instrumental in helping convince Phil, like, hey, this kid Frank Ntilikina, he's really, he's the cat's pajamas. You could run your offense. That was an opportunity, and you could go down the line. I hope those weren't our chances. That like, oh, those were your opportunities and you blew them. Now, what is inevitably going to happen, I think, because I don't think they're lucking into some trade. I, as we talk about all this time, free agency is dead, or it's going to be dead for at least the foreseeable future. I could see it being a situation where in a season like this one, or maybe it's next year or the year after that, where it's like, okay, they're supposed to be decent, fall a little short. Maybe it's an injury. Maybe it's a couple injuries. Maybe the coach gets fired. Maybe they go into the tank, a la Golden State, not when they got Steph, but when they drafted Harrison Barnes. And they they get lucky finally, whether it's get lucky by a guy who shouldn't falls to them, or maybe they actually move up. If it's going to happen and the luck finally turns, if I was a betting man, I would bet on it happening through the draft. That would be my wager. But I think that would mean that Leon Rose's grand plan has not gone according to plan. So, yeah.
Yes. So you're right. There are definitely fork in the road moments for the franchise where you can say, what if, like the Kristaps thing, and, you know, or what if Steve Mills, instead of just taking what Dallas offered them, just said, you know what, let me just pick up the phone and see if I can get anything else more for Kristaps Porzingis.
That's doing a what if of like, what if this person was competent at their job, which I can't deal in those what ifs, Shawn. I'm sorry. I don't have that in me. Shout out to Steve Mills. We talk about woefully underqualified to do the job. But that leads us back to the present day, which is like, you know, Steve Mills is not running the Knicks anymore. And I don't want to bash Steve Mills, but like, it's not Phil Jackson. It's not Isaiah Thomas. It is a group of people that are knowledgeable about what they're doing. They have some modicum of expertise, whether they're great at their jobs or like just mediocre at their jobs. It's like they know how to put one foot in front of the other. And that is a good thing. And in this market, and like they have, as you know, I think they have a good coach, and I think they have a pretty good culture at this point. We haven't brought up the Nets once on this podcast. My Lord.
I was actually about to, but for a different reason.
I'm curious what the reason is. So like, yeah, all of that stuff is good, but it does, harken back to like, okay, so we're okay. We're decent, or like, around decent, and we're, mediocre. And I do think that is frustrating. And the last thing I will say, and then I'll turn it back to you. The people that I feel the worst for are not the young fans who have never seen any real success. It's for, and these are the people in my newsletter comments, the people who are like, I was born like, or I started following the team like right after the championships, and I've been dealing with this shit, or like even the people who remember the championships, maybe they were kids, and they're just like, I just want to see a team that can go out there and maybe win 50 games. Like I feel for those people.
Yes. No, I do. Like Ray Marcano, who's probably been around for a long time, and Lord knows he's probably, I was going to bring up the Nets because that was another instance where the Nets made arguably the worst trade of the 21st century, and we're stuck in complete and utter, like that, the definition of sub-purgatory, and just so happened to be frisky the 1 year Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are available.
Because they had to be frisky.
Yes. But now say what you want to. Now we can talk about what's happened to that franchise since then. Oh, can we take 10 seconds to laugh at the Brooklyn Nets?
Andrew, you want to come in for this?
The city's under new management.
It's a cool team, Andrew. It's a cool team, Shawn.
I feel bad for all of their fan.
All 80, I thought it was 87.
All 87. All 87. Yeah. All 87.
But like I watch, like it's like, because there's the crew out there that believes like the only way to win is to tank, and it's like, oh, so your plan is to get lucky, great. But it's, they say like you have to tank to be bad, and I'm like, you know what? I saw Houston never tank and get James Harden. I saw Brooklyn not tank because they couldn't and get KD and Kyrie. I saw Miami never tank and they got Jimmy Butler. But now like when we try to say, let's just be competitive and not suck, we have people in our own fan base that tell us it's the worst idea in the world. And then the opportunity isn't there. So that's why I'm just like frustrated. Like, can we catch a break? Like, and I can't believe it feels like I'm just like sour grapes on this bitch. I don't care. Like, listen, did the immortal Danny Ainge try to trade 4 first-round picks for Justice Winslow, and Michael Jordan said no? Like, can I have one of those? Is that asking too much? 30 years. Can I get one?
I let me say this about the tanking thing, because me and Andrew talk about it a lot. I until the end of NBA totally disincentivizes tanking, I do think there is a logic to it. I'm happy this team's not tanking. I genuinely mean that. I'm happy they're not tanking. I'm happy to watch Jalen Brunson be a really, really good NBA player. I think this team is going to be fun this year. I know the last couple of games weren't fun. I think they're going to be fun. I think they're an imperfect. Here, that's what part of the thing that is bugging me. They're, and I wonder if this is also why there's a lot of people out there that are frustrated. Like, it's not just that they're mediocre; it's that they're mediocre, and that it is very clear to me, at least. And there may be folks out there who feel differently. And again, I'll turn to you because you were on Twitter a lot more than I am. It is very clear to me that they are constructed in a way that I think a basketball team in the year of our Lord 2022 should not be constructed, where in terms of like where guys want to be on the court and where guys want to operate, and like you don't necessarily have the spacing or the shooting to have a team that is as functional as it probably needs to be on most nights to go against like really good defenses or to stay in games like late in the fourth quarter. That's a little frustrating, but I also don't blame this front office for that at all. Maybe not at all, but I don't put a ton of blame on them, because like I can't blame them for the Julius extension. If the Mitchell deal fell through, yes, they obviously should have extended Barrett and kept him here. It's just the pieces don't fit great. I think that's part of it too.
Yes. I also do not like, there is a logic to tanking. I just put back on the people that believe that tanking is the only way and that it's foolproof, because Lord knows it isn't. It's funny you say about, the team isn't perfect in its roster construction, and you say that, you understand the Randall extension. And I understand the Randall extension also. And I think that the people out there that try to act like the Julius Randle being the 49th highest paid player in the league is this crippling albatross of like, garbage, is like, whatever. But I just do think about like, what if they had just said, all right, I said this on a playback. I said this on not a playback. I said this on a pregame show. Most teams, if they have the third pick and the eighth pick in consecutive years, they say, we're going to build around these two guys. Or at the very least, we're going to see what these two guys are. And this front office, and I've defended this front office more than most, this front office inherited the third pick, took the eighth pick, and then instead of trying to see what they have, they said, okay, let's see if these guys can fit into what we are trying to do.
Yeah.
And that included not taking a ham sandwich for Julius Randle in November of 2020.
I reference it all the time. 11-14. They were 11-14. It was right there for them. And instead of trading Randle, they traded for Derrick Rose. That was the pivot point.
Fuck 11-14. You took a power forward eighth. Well, I remember one John C. Macri tweeted, well, I hope Julius has been renting. Because at that point, it should be like, we took a power forward eighth. Julius, thanks for the memories. It's time to say goodbye. But since our front office, go ahead, John.
We didn't know it. I remember the conversations me and Jeremy had, and we were like, if they salary dump him, do they have to attach something? Or can they get something? Should they keep him into the season? That was like the big point of conversation that summer. That's why I don't point to the summer. I point to, like, we were all like, okay, fine. You're going to keep him into the season. You want to rehab his value? Fine. Rehab his value. They rehabbed his value. He started off the season shooting flames out of his butt. And I'm sure they could have found someone at that point to take him. And then we'd be looking at a very different situation right now. I think.
Yes. But I think at the time you have said that every team, every good team needs found money, and they thought Julius has found money. Like, okay, at the very least, this dude could be the number 2 or number 3. Like, we got something here that we can do with him. But at the same time, I'm like, all right, because this front office values value above everything, we can't trade him now. We'll only get, at most, if we're lucky, a second-round pick. But then when he turns into Larry Bird, we can't trade him now. He's Larry Bird. Yeah. And then when he turns into the worst version of himself, we can't trade him now because now we'll have to attach something. And it's like, well, do you realize that you could have maybe got a top 58 protected second round pick and you said no? Now the price of the brick has gone down.
Can I jump in? To me,
it's just like, yes, Andrew.
So what you're talking about, Shawn, and look, there's so much hindsight involved with Julius Randle because last season happened, and I think all of the good that we felt during the We Here season is just gone, especially with how good Obi looks and how much people want to see the keys be handed to the kid. You were just talking about, like, when are the Knicks going to get lucky? When are the Knicks going to be able to, like, have a guy suddenly show up that we didn't expect him to come from? Julius Randle making second team All NBA that season. I think a lot of us, and I mean, look, we just quoted one Jonathan C. Macri on draft night of 2020. I remember many a night where we thought the Julius Renaissance was sustainable. A lot of people did. And, you know, how much he bought into being a leader and bought into being the face of the Knicks. And yeah, all the long twos stopped falling his second year. Probably that should have been in more of an indication, but we thought we at least had one of the guys that if Julius didn't turn back into a pumpkin last year, maybe trading for Donovan Mitchell isn't less of a question because it's pairing them two together, you know.
But that's why we don't run the team. And to borrow an analogy from a once pretty good basketball analyst, that's the difference between the Knicks made the Sonny Corleone move. The Michael Corleone move was to ship Julius out as soon as he started that season off the way he did, you know, and they didn't. And now he's here. And I hate always crapping on. I don't want to seem like I'm crapping on Randle. It's not about Randle. I mean that genuinely. It is not about Julius Randle. It's about, like, he's a certain type of player with a certain type of game that is a certain type of fit. And it's a tough fit if you have Jalen Brunson and RJ Barrett and you don't have a stretch five, like, all of, you know, this is just reality. It's the reality of the situation.
Tell me a guy that is ball dominant and shooting 6 of 25 from 3 is a bad fit, John?
I looked it up today. Shout out Obi Toppin. Yeah. Not that he needs any more shout outs. 9th, I believe, right now amongst power forwards in 3-point makes per 36 minutes. Mm-hmm. Julius Randle is 51st amongst power forwards in 3-pointers made per 36 minutes.
So that's like, that broke my brain. So he's worse than so many backups then.
Yeah, he's making 1.1 made 3 per 36 minutes. Obi is at 3.5.
Yeah. The shot chart, the process is fine. He needs to start making shots.
Shawn has his head in his hand.
Yeah.
I love it. So we've broken Shawn in the first time he's come on the pod.
So I just go back to what Andrew said about, you know, like, that's a good point. Like, you know, maybe we finally got lucky. We got our stroke of luck. I never believed it was sustainable. I never believed that Julius Randle was going to be a 41%. I never believed he was going to be a 41% 3-point shooter for the rest of his career. Right. And I was like, okay. And honestly, I'll give the front office credit. I think they believe that also, because they were like, all right, let's try to get this dude some help so he doesn't have to try and do this all over again. Now, the players they brought in, good Lord, but they like, it was like, okay. But the fact that he couldn't even shoot just shoot league average from 3, how about that? Right. But again, I go back to, you drafted this kid 8th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's been good.
8th.
And he's been good.
And he's progressed every single year, which is what you want from the 8th pick, you know?
And instead of just cutting your losses, because remember, that's November 2020. We're in the throes of the pandemic. Everything's closed. Vegas thinks we're going to be the worst team in the league.
Yep.
There was absolutely no expectations to do anything.
Nope.
Why not wipe the slate clean? But you know what? We had a head coach. We hired a head coach that wants to win every single game.
The front office hired the head coach because he plays every game like it is game 7 of the NBA Finals. That is why they hired the man. That is why the man is still employed.
I agree. Yeah. Yes, and I knew that was coming because
John heard.
Because John. No, it's true. You're right. It's true. You're 1,000% right.
It's the one thing that I can't deal with. Stop. The man has his clear flaws, but this is what they wanted. This is the guy that they wanted.
I know this is what they hired a head coach. They hired a head coach because their plan was, instead of just taking the gap year, we are going to try to win game. And listen, I don't think it's a bad idea, because I think if you have a team that's half decent in New York for a sustained amount of time, you will reap benefits that's not available. Because if Julius Randle did what he did in Sacramento, he's not second team All-NBA, and he's definitely not an all-star. But maybe, right?
No, you're 100% right. It's completely sound logic. The reason why trading him early in that season was the Michael Corleone move is because you've hired Tom Thibodeau as your head coach, and you have to trust that even after you trade away what was unequivocally at the time his best player, he would still be able to have a positive developmental effect by holding guys accountable, the whole thing, all the stuff that didn't happen with Kevin Knox and I'm sure there's other players that we can name. That's the benefit you get from him. And that's where you, as Leon Rose and World Wide Wes, have to be strong enough to be like, yeah, we'll hear your voice out and you're going to be part of the decision-making process and the whole thing. But this is our ass on the line. We report to James Dolan. It's our decision. We're making this decision. We know you don't like it, but you're going to have to live with it, because guess what? You don't have a choice. This is your last chance coaching. This is your third coaching gig. No one else is going to give you a head gig. And I think it would have been really interesting to see how that team developed when he would have been, quite literally forced to play, the younger players on the team, but it didn't happen.
I think that Leon, I think Tibbs made, and I'm just complete speculation because it's just me trying to justify why Tibbs does the batting things that he does. And I think he all right, promise me that you'll give me, we'll just try to win. Promise me that I'm not going to be, we're not going to tank. I'm not going to be developing kids, because to your point, this is his last coaching job. He probably didn't want to spend 3 years trying to develop shit, right?
When he signed on, I am sure he was given assurances. This is not going to be a tank job. We are going to try. We're going to go for it. And we want you to go for it in all the ways that you know how to go for it. Because that's the only way you know how to coach. Otherwise, they wouldn't have hired him. They would have hired, whatever.
Kenny Atkinson or something like that.
Or Jason Kidd, probably.
Yeah.
See, now we're no better than the people who are bitching and moaning, because we're sitting here huffing and puffing about, look, things are good. They're playing well. Julius's approach is good. RJ's just hit 3 or 4 from deep. Maybe he's going to hit 3 or 4 from deep every game for the rest of his career. We don't know.
You know what makes me huff and puff about Tom Thibodeau the most? Because mostly you're right. Tom Thibodeau is who he is. You knew who he was, who he is. I think it's, I think the idea that it's okay, I think the idea of I will be inflexible or you can fire me is not good culture setting. But what bothers me the most and I will talk, if you ask about Tom Thibodeau, what will I remember the most? It's the press conference in Miami.
Oh.
Where
it's the one I point out.
It's dog, what we've been asking for, this is it right here. Yep. This is it right here. And instead of just saying, hey, the kids played well tonight. We got some good minutes. You know, they've been coming along, whatever. Let me tell you motherfuckers why you don't know shit. And it's like, at that point, it was like, you know what? Fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Like,
it was a lot of like, you have Julius involved. And it's like, you realize the reason you won tonight is because Julius wasn't there.
I think
for you to put him back in the fourth quarter. Right?
I think he finish your point.
And the other thing is, I remember, I think it was after he got fired in Minnesota. He went on Zach Lowe, and they asked him like what he's been doing. And he's like, I've been going around to other teams and I've been talking to Greg Popovich. I've been doing this and I've been doing that. And I've been learning and I've been changing and figuring out different things to do. And as soon as he gets a coach, it's a good job. He goes right back to everything he's always done. And for someone, again, who is looking their NBA coaching mortality in the mirror, you think that the best course of action is to double down. And when the evidence is staring you in the face, like, hey, play these kids. Yeah. What do you have to lose? You don't watch the tape. All right, cool. Like at that point for me, and I think he's a good coach. When people say he's a bad coach, I'm like, no, you're out of your mind. Like he's had 3 losing seasons out of 11, and he's been the head coach of the New York Knicks and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Clearly, he knows how to coach, but it's just that just makes like at that point, it told me like, all right, we knew it already. There is a clear ceiling with this guy, and he, for whatever reason, he will never. Unless we get lucky, but that's for me. Like whenever I get frustrated with Tibbs, I just go back to Miami and I'm just like, that is the microcosm of the Tom Thibodeau experience.
That was his, I believe that was his attempt. He thought that win, I would wager, could perhaps irreparably damage whatever was left of the fabric of the culture of the team. And I think the reason why he said what he said was after a long season. And again, all these guys hear all of this stuff. They all know what people are saying. I think that was his way of basically trying to have his guys' backs. You know, that was not, that press conference was meant for his locker room more than the fans. You know, I don't think he gives a blessed fuck what fans think of him. I am fairly certain he doesn't care. But that's my explanation for that. As far as his inability to go outside of what is usually a very small box, that's just his coaching philosophy. I think he believes that you get as good as possible the smaller your boxes, the easier it is to become an expert at the things you do in that box. And the wider your box goes, the harder it is. And I think with more talent, more top end talent specifically, I think we'd see him go outside the box a little bit more. But because I think he feels like the talent here is what the talent here is, I got to keep it as small as possible. And I got to keep this thing as self-contained as possible. And I got to keep my finger on the pulse. And is there some ego in that? There's probably a lot of ego in that. How in God's name could you become an NBA coach without having an ego? Man's a 2-time Coach of the Year award winner. You don't think that has seeped in a little bit? You know, of course it has. So I'm not deaf to the pleas from people who are like, Tibbs drives us crazy. I get it.
Can I add one thing before we wrap up?
Please.
Shawn, do you watch or listen to this should be my drinking game, to the Dan Le Batard show?
Intermittently, but yes. I've been listening to Le Batard for like years though.
So obviously same, and they're a Miami show. So they talk about the Miami Heat religiously. And I was listening, I think either today or yesterday, and I heard them complaining that Spo just has an infatuation for the veterans on this team and won't stop playing them max minutes when there are better, younger options on the bench. And I was like, whoa, deja vu. Holy hell. But that's my point. I'm making your point, John. I'm making your point that this is not a Knicks specific issue. This is literally every coach does this unless the young player has shown to be special and shown to be good against starting units. Now, look, should the Knicks have pulled the plug last year and experimented with some younger players sooner? Yes, but that was not because I thought it would, like, we all thought it would like be a better alternative, but it was also like, just see if it is, because the worst case scenario, if it does, then you've got a really good problem. You've got a team of young players that's too good to lose. And if it's bad, then hey, your draft pick improves and you're not drafting 11th this year. You know,
it was there for him on a silver platter.
Yeah.
And he pushed the platter away.
After the Nets game, that's when they should have pushed the button. And to bring everything full circle, if they had pushed the button and IQ and Obi and Grimes and RJ were allowed to quote unquote flourish, maybe Donovan Mitchell is a Knick.
Because in the
I don't know, but the thing is, I'm not saying he would have. The problem is I don't know, and they never tried. They never gave us the opportunity.
It's an unknown. I'll agree with you that it is an unknown. I think reasonable minds could differ, but yes, that was the moment. That was the moment to pull the plug, and they did not do so. Hopefully, this season there's no similar path that they traverse, and we win some games. I think this Hawks game is important, by the way. I'm going to put that out there right now. It's the 7th game of the season. I think it's important. I think at home against a Hawks team that is once again a dumpster fire on defense. They're bottom 6. Last I checked. Go out and win this game. Like, go out and win the game. Hawks take the fewest threes in the NBA. That's been your bugaboo. Like, you should be able to beat this team.
Got a bad feeling.
Absolutely.
Bad feeling. Like, Sean, I think you understand. Atlanta coming off of what's happened to after takeoff died, you know, they're going to look to. That's the thing. Yeah. That city just got rocked by one of the more tragic deaths, incidents. And
yes.
Now I will say the fact that it's in the Garden might not make it matter, you know. But if this was in Atlanta, I'd feel even worse.
Yeah,
I'd be looking at the Hawks money line.
But you know? Yeah, but I've also realized that, you know, there have been many times where it's like, oh, this happened, that should happen, and it doesn't. But I will say that, you know, I saw someone on Twitter say like, oh, because the Hawks got clapped by like 30 by the Raptors, and it's like, oh, they're coming in angry, and I'm like, and so like we've beat this team 8 out of the last 10 times we played in a regular season. So like I feel as if the funny thing is I feel as if we actually, you know, whatever. We'll see. We'll see. I think, but they should, like, this is a game that's winnable. They should win it. They could win it, and they win it.
To be clear, I think the Hawks. I would, if I was setting the line, I would favor the Hawks. I don't know if I'd favor them by 1.5, half point, 2 point. I don't know, but I would favor the Hawks.
Well, let me check the lines from our new friends over at WinBet in their sportsbook and see what they've got for tomorrow.
I don't know if the lines don't always post this early.
They are. You doubt our friends over at WinBet. Just, sign up and download the app today, or go to winbet.com and see what the lines are. And right now is...
Wait, do you want to play Guess the Lines? Sean,
go ahead. Guess the Lines. There we go.
I'll do... Guess the Lines. I will go... I'll go Hawks by 1.5.
I was going to say 1.5. I will say... I think it's going to be 1.5.
Okay.
The Hawks?
Yes.
So you're both saying 1.5. It's Knicks minus 1.5.
Wow.
The Knicks are favored in this game. So if you are doubting this said New York Knicks and thinking the Hawks coming in are angry, as Sean said, or maybe have more to play for because of what's happened in that city, it's minus 110 to get the spread. They're minus 135 on the money line. The over-under for the game is 228.5. So there you go. The Knicks are favorites tomorrow at home against Atlanta.
I guess that's fair. I mean,
even more so. Go win the game. Yes. Sean, I've kept you for too long. This was fun. Can you let the folks at home know where they could find you and your thoughts and stuff?
Sure. You can follow me on Twitter at Shawn with a W _. As you mentioned earlier, I am the host of Knicks Film School's KFS Study Hall. I also, from time to time, host a Twitter space called Live from the Mecca, which I co-host with Cedric Shine and Jeff Johnson, aka Jeff J Says. And you can also find me in Twitter spaces yelling at people, defending the Knicks' honor, because when it comes to the Knicks on the internet, I am Jon Snow in Game of Thrones pulling out the sword against the onslaught of Renly Baratheon's army. And that's what I like to do. So that's where you can find me.
That's awesome, because at one time, Shawn, that is the energy that I brought to this, and I've since become a withered old man. And
God bless you.
Hold on. The nerds out there are going to be really mad.
Why?
Ramsey Bolton's army.
It was Ramsey Bolton. I don't know why I said no. I was looking it up. I was like, Renly Baratheon does not make sense. I was literally I was typing it on my phone. Like,
I watched that whole show, and I would not have.
And I just lost all of my cool points that I went out of my way to correct that. But I knew.
No, you should.
I could see the comments there being like, it wasn't Renly. That was Ramsey's army at the Battle of the Bastards.
Yes. And before anyone sends for me on Twitter, I watch every episode of Game of Thrones. So I knew I'm not just being a cool guy. I was like, no, I remember it. I watched it live, whatever. But yes, the Battle of the Bastards.
Hell yeah.
I think 3 straight times my wife and I have tried to again get through this fucking Game of Dragons, whatever the hell the name, and every time she falls asleep.
I don't blame.
We're on like episode 7. We tried again to watch a little bit of it today, and 10 minutes she was passing out. I don't know if it's going to happen for us, but we'll keep trying.
It's dope. It's just my overall review is like it's a get to it show. Like, get to it when you get to it. It's not like there's great stuff and great writing. There's just a lot of talking in rooms, and then dragons.
We'll get to it when we get to it. Shawn, anything else before we go?
That's it. I am hungry. I gotta give my kid a bath. I thought this was gonna be an hour, but I can sit here for another hour and a half with you. So maybe one day we'll get to catch up again soon.
Oh no, we definitely will. Thank you for coming on. Thank you everybody out there for catching another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. We'll be back with you. Some more fun and games before you know it. Peace out.